Some racetracks are built to stand the test of time, whether from high-level drivers and series promoting the races to a strong core of loyal local fans. Other tracks fall to land developers, local track saturation, recessions, and wars. Then, there's the wild and unsafe demise of one of America's first major racetrack types, the board tracks. The United States saw the construction of many large, high-bank tracks in the 1910s and 20s made from wood. The tracks were hand-built, fast, exciting, and dangerous. The bloodbaths that ensued from running these splintering surfaces gave them a service life almost, but not quite, as short as the service life of the 2x4s themselves they were made of. In this video, we will be looking at one of the two board tracks that Pennsylvania had, this being Uniontown Speedway. The quiet meadows of a small town just north of West Virginia, Hopwood, Pennsylvania seems like a perfect place for a large-scale racetrack. The actual reason for its location stems from the outlawing of a Summit Mountain hill climb that was held in the nearby town of Uniontown. The success of that event led to more racing coming to the area. This was a project funded by wealthy steel barons, filmmakers, and auto moguls. They brought lumber from the Uniontown Railroad Station via horse-drawn carriage, and construction via high school students began in 1916 as World War I had put the Vanderbilt Cup and the Indianapolis 500 on hold. It only took 2 months to complete the build, and Uniontown Speedway went up in a jiffy as a 1 5/8 mile board track. The board tracks were big. They drew big names and big crowds. These races were sanctioned by AAA, which at the time was the premier sanctioning body of racing in the United States, with a national championship of races held all year long. The first race ever held at the Uniontown board track happened on December 2nd, 1916, and was a non-championship AAA race. It was 225 miles around, 138 laps, called the Universal Trophy. The president of Universal Films had sponsored the race. His name was Carl Laemmle, and he soon became part of the track's image. The promoter of the racetrack was one of the investors, a silent movie actress named Vivian Prescott. Vivian brought Laemmle in, and he would end up filming every race held at the track to show in movie theaters across the country. Now, at this time, auto racing was dangerous and gory. This first race was above even the standards of that time, as through practice and the race itself, there were a total of 7 people who lost their lives, 5 participants and 2 spectators. The first race was won by Louis Chevrolet, the oldest of 3 brothers who went on to start a little car company that you might have heard of. Uniontown Speedway was a bloody success, and in 1917 it hosted 3 AAA non-championship races: the Universal Trophy in May, the Autumn Classic in September, and a 3rd race in October. In 1918, 3 races were held again in May, July, and September, won by Vanderbilt Cup winner Ralph Mulford, Louis Chevrolet, and Mulford again. The same 3 dates in 1919 were won by Indy 500 champions through and through, as Tommy Milton won the first 2, and the 3rd was a dual-effort victory for Gaston Chevrolet and Joe Boyer. In 1920, Tommy Milton won the 2 races held. 1921 saw the 2 scheduled races being counted as points-paying races for the first time, which were won by Roscoe Sarles and I.P. Fetterman. The final race held at the track was in June of 1922, with the recently crowned champion of the Indianapolis 500, Jimmy Murphy, winning in a Duesenberg. As time went on, improvements to the technology in concrete and asphalt, along with the upkeep charges, led to the demise of board tracks. The surfaces became more secure and reliable with less upkeep. The casualties that were racked up at the wood tracks across the country also contributed to their obsolescence. Uniontown Speedway didn't make it to the late 1920s when all of this unfolded, as the 1922 race was the last one held without anybody knowing. There is no record of why the track closed down or how long it sat before it was fully torn down. Right before World War II, another Hopwood Speedway was built right beside where the board track was, and it stayed in action after the war until 1948. That was a very interesting track because it had dirt straightaways and paved corners, a unique combination, and at some point the land was also a driving range for golf. After that, it was then privatized to the Washita Valley Enterprises, which is an oil field inspection company. My resources only give me aerials dating back to 1939, which is 17 years on, and there is nothing left to see of the track. I was able to locate where the track was because of this map of the property. Triangulating between the railroad tracks and Halley's Comet, I have found an outline of the track drawn here to show you present day where it was. The second rendition track is roughly shown here, the whole of the property being on the property of Washita Valley Enterprises. At this time, Route 40 did not exist here, and there were less homes nearby, but the train tracks were present as shown before. It would take a well-rounded historian to know that at one time, the biggest names in auto racing were regularly coming to this area for competition. That's the story. There's the history of the Uniontown board track. 1916 to 1922, with tons of fame and fortune walking the property, which now sits in Hopwood, with no reminders of its past. That's why we do this series, though, to raise awareness of our own history and keep the memory of past races alive. Thank you all for your continued support of this video series, and I welcome you to share it with others that you may know who will enjoy it. We'll see you on the other side of the boards for another Forgotten Racetrack next time.